As well, he extended the mandate of the Central Election Commission without legislative approval. He amended the criminal code to criminalize non-compliance with his own decrees, a move to primarily eliminate from political life a democratically elected president of Republika Srpska for fulfilling his constitutional duties to sign laws passed by the National Assembly of Republika Srpska, but also to intimidate any dissenting officials who would dare challenge his illegitimate rule. He cut public funding to the democratically elected political parties in Republika Srpska, canceling the political will but also the voice of the vast majority of its voters. Esteemed members of the Council, this is neither the Dayton Agreement nor a democracy and certainly not the rule of law. It is dictatorship, government by decree, unchecked by courts, devoid of appeal. What started as mere overreach has now solidified into a system of repression. Each action was justified in the name of functionality, yet the result is not a more cohesive Bosnia. It is a deeply polarized country which can hardly survive this form and extent of foreign intervention. When Republika Srpska protests such violations, we are unjustly labeled as separatists. However, demanding adherence to international treaties is not separatism. Contrary to some narratives, Republika Srpska is not undermining the Dayton Agreement. It is upholding it. Our demands do not seek to dismantle Bosnia and Herzegovina, but rather to restore the legality and balance originally enshrined in the Dayton framework. For this reason, the National Assembly of Republika Srpska has enacted legislation to defend its rights within Dayton. These measures are not provocations. They are lawful responses to persistent violations of international law. The ongoing crisis in neither of Republika Srpska's making nor its interests. It has been triggered by Mr. Schmidt and his most expansive and authoritarian use of power, burdening the country with a series of unlawful impositions. Therefore, condemning Republika Srpska's actions without first addressing Mr. Schmidt's unlawful interventions is not only misleading, but dangerously one-sided. Allow me to state our position plainly. We remain fully committed to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina as defined by Dayton. As for the mandate of the High Representative, we seek to place it back on its legal foundation, which is Annex 10, and prepare for the closure of the OHR. We reject unilateral decrees that rewrite the treaty, criminalize debate, persecute political opponents through a weaponized judicial system, discriminate political parties, or suspend the will of voters. A legal reset in Bosnia is a logical next step if we want to prevent escalation and successive future crises. Therefore, I respectfully call on this Council to take some immediate steps. Schedule a formal vote on Mr. Schmidt's confirmation. If he cannot pass the vote, let us find a candidate who can and who will be appointed in accordance with Annex 10 of the Dayton Agreement. Number 2, establish an independent legal review under Security Council's auspices of the conformity of the so-called bond powers with Annex 10 and the UN Charter. 3, encourage all BIH stakeholders to engage in a dialogue aimed at preventing further crises and revitalizing functional governance. We are prepared to participate constructively, transparently, and in good faith. Mr. President, members of the Council, the Dayton Agreement ended a devastating war and laid the foundation for our constitutional system. It deserves respect, not manipulation and breach of its procedures. Let us together ensure that Bosnia's future is written not by decree, but by law. On a separate but critical note, because I know that some of you had some objections about my appearance here, I want to clarify one issue. As a member of the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I have been forced to engage directly with your missions due to obstruction by the BIH Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This ministry selectively restricts my diplomatic correspondence while granting unrestricted access to my Bosnian colleague. This bias extends even to Bosnia's permanent mission to the United Nations. Such actions demonstrate the reality of the state we are being asked to accept. A system where power is centralized, constitutional rights are disregarded, and even the fundamental ability to communicate is manipulated for political ends. I thank you for your attention and remain at your disposal for any further questions. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency Ms. Vijanovic for her statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Stavros Davrinidis, Head of the Delegation of the European Union to the United Nations.
Thank you, Mr. President, and let me as well extend my warm congratulations to you on Kristi's assumption of the Security Council presidency this month. Kalli επιτυχία. Allow me to begin. No one needs to translate this. It's just for you. Allow me to begin with the most recent developments. The European Union remains seriously concerned about legislation and initiatives in the Republika Srpska entity that run counter to the EU path of Bosnia and Herzegovina, including secessionist rhetoric and questioning the constitutional order of the country. The sovereignty, territorial integrity, constitutional order, including constitutional court decisions, and the international personality of Bosnia and Herzegovina need to be respected. Any action against these principles would lead to serious consequences. EU4 Althea continues to play a key role in supporting the authorities in Bosnia and Herzegovina in maintaining a safe and secure environment for all citizens. The European Union reiterates the importance of continued cooperation among international actors and expresses again its support to the mission of the High Representative and his office towards fulfilling the 5+2 agenda. The European Union reiterates its unequivocal commitment to Bosnia and Herzegovina's EU perspective as a single, united and sovereign country. The EU urges all political actors to renew the country's focus on progressing on the EU path, taking resolute actions to implement the necessary reforms. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ευχαριστώ, which means I thank His Excellency Mr. Stavros Davrinidis for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Croatia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to use the opportunity to congratulate France on a successful presidency in April and wish all the best to Greece in the month ahead. Regarding the 67th report of the High Representative for Bosnia and Herzegovina, we fully share the concern on the current political crisis in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Republic of Croatia calls on all political actors in Bosnia and Herzegovina to respect the constitutional order of the country, its sovereignty, and to uphold the principles of equality and non-discrimination of the constituent peoples and others. We urge all political actors to refrain from divisive rhetoric and actions and to engage in constructive dialogue and cooperation in order to ensure the full functionality of the country's institutions. The current situation calls for strong and responsible diplomatic engagement to prevent escalation and to help navigate through the political crisis. Nevertheless, it is ultimately the responsibility of domestic political actors and the country's own institutions to take gradual and full ownership over the stability and functionality of Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is not only essential, but also a key precondition for the country's future as a member of the European Union. We appreciate the work done by the High Representative Schmidt and his accomplishments in executing this mandate. However, referring specifically to the 67th report of the High Representative, we would like to add that the report would have benefited from a more balanced treatment of the conduct of all political actors, especially of those actions aimed against the political status of Croats as the most underrepresented and vulnerable of the three constituent peoples. In this context, we must emphasize that the Dayton Peace Agreement and the Constitution as an integral part remain the cornerstone of the constitutional order and political stability of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yet, the functionality of that order depends on the fairness and credibility of its democratic mechanisms. That is why electoral reform must be treated as the highest political priority. Only through meaningful reform, a reform that eliminates inequality among the constituent peoples and addresses systemic discrimination in the electoral process, can Bosnia and Herzegovina achieve lasting political stability. Electoral reform is not a peripheral issue. It is a cornerstone of a just and stable democracy and of any lasting national compromise. Finally, we commend Bosnia and Herzegovina for the significant progress it has made on its path towards EU membership. The European Union offers the best framework for peace, development and prosperity. We fully support Bosnia and Herzegovina on this path and hope to see European integration return to the forefront of the political agenda, as it benefits all citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina and its 3 constituent peoples. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Croatia for his statements, and now I give the floor to the representative of Serbia.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, allow me to congratulate you on assuming the presidency of the Security Council this month and to wish you every success in discharging your duties. Serbia has a strategic interest in the preservation of the stability of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Any instability, let alone conflict, would have a devastating spillover effect, halting economic development, derailing much-needed reforms, and creating yet another wave of chaos. It is precisely for these reasons that Serbia is invested in the stability of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Dayton Agreement put an end to the war and has ensured peace and security for 30 years. This has been done through the constitutional structure set out in Annex 10 of the agreement. The preservation of the stability, therefore, requires full respect for the constitutional mechanisms that underpin it. The reality of Bosnia and Herzegovina is that it is a multi-ethnic society. The country remembers both the days of joy and tragedy because of this. In order to preserve this diversity as a strength, it must be respected as such. If we seek a functional Bosnia and Herzegovina, we must respect what has already been achieved and tested, a structure based on 2 entities and 3 constituent peoples. Everyone must feel secure within the common state. No one in Bosnia and Herzegovina should be left constitutionally vulnerable. A state in which this is not the case cannot function properly. Respect for the constitutional rights and competencies is essential. In a complex environment of Bosnia and Herzegovina, neither ethnic outvoting nor external imposition of decisions can provide sustainable solutions. Such actions can only serve to violate the constitutionally defined rights of the constituent peoples and the competencies of the 2 entities, which is neither legally acceptable nor politically helpful. Thus, the problem is functioning of Bosnia and Herzegovina have not been caused by the Dayton Agreement, but rather by latent or overt attempts to undermine it. It is our understanding, as stated also in the report of its government, that Republika Srpska does not advocate secession, but the preservation of the Dayton Agreement and protection of its constitutionally granted competencies. As a signatory of the Dayton Agreement, Serbia finds such a claim valid and justified. On the other side, one cannot escape the impression that the verdict of the Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina against President of Republika Srpska Milorad Dodik, as well as the issuing of an arrest warrant for Mr. Dodik, Mr. Višković and Mr. Stevandić on charges of violating the constitutional orders of Bosnia and Herzegovina are politically motivated. Interpol's decision not to act on the request by the Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina to issue an international arrest warrant for Mr. Dodik underscores the argument that the proceedings against the President of Republika Srpska are politically motivated and not grounded in the principles of impartial criminal justice. Serbia also considers that the imposition of the higher-up decisions is not in line with the mandate stipulated in Annex 10 of the Dayton Agreement, nor universally democratic principles. Equally inconsistent with these principles is the attempt to eliminate democratically elected representatives of Republika Srpska from the political life of Bosnia and Herzegovina by misusing the judicial authorities for political purposes. Mr. President, I'm obliged to note that serious accusations against Serbia continue to be voiced by the Bosnian political representatives. These allegations, which are a part of both internal narratives and the diplomatic rhetoric coming out from the political Sarajevo, suggest covert intentions to dismantle Bosnia and Herzegovina. We categorically reject such claims. Once again, we shall refrain from a counter-narrative that political Sarajevo seeks to dismantle Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state of two entities and three constituent peoples. Whether these attempts come from Bosniak ethnic parties or so-called civic parties, drawing support primarily from the same ethnic group, the underlying goal remains the same. We, however, believe that even assuming good intentions, efforts to remove internal checks and balances must be judged not by intent, by the destabilizing consequences that may produce. In conclusion, let me stress that in the current tense climate in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the overriding priority, both internally and externally, must be the preservation of peace and stability above all else. Neither side should be exempt from its responsibilities in this regard. I assure you, Mr. President, that Serbia will continue to contribute to regional peace and stability to the best of its abilities. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Serbia for his statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.